Thanks everybody for joining us. I hope everybody's having a great Aspire. I know there's a lot of good topics and sessions out there, and I really hope you're gaining some valuable insight from all of those. My name is Jeff Andrews. I lead our NetSuite practice, and this session is intended to be focused on all the new things coming in the 2022.2 release of NetSuite and what was just recently announced at SuiteWorld. So there's lots of content here, but the primary audience here is existing clients using NetSuite. If you're here and you're looking at NetSuite, there is another session that's really focused on what is NetSuite and could it be my next. But if you are here and you're not on NetSuite, that's okay. Stick around because you will see a lot of the new features that have just been released in NetSuite. But just know this is really probably more relevant to those already on NetSuite and what's kind of coming or what recently was released. Again, my name is Jeff Andrews. I lead the NetSuite business, and we're excited to have you. So we're going to dive right in. Now, I will kind of give you a high level here before we dive in deep on some of these other areas. The first thing we're going to cover is some of the features that have been released in 2022.2. Most of you probably know NetSuite has two major releases a year that's included in your license. They automatically are deployed and you get access to nearly all of these features. Sometimes they are optional and they carry a license, but most of these are included and enable you just to turn them on and use them. So this list here is many of the things I'm going to touch on around the new features in 2022.2. And most of you have just recently gotten these features, and there are probably a few of you that are still getting these into the latter part of October and into November. And then we're going to cover a lot about what was announced at SuiteWorld. SuiteWorld, just happened in Las Vegas. It was a very large event this year, and I'm going to cover some of the major announcements from a product standpoint that were shared at SuiteWorld in Las Vegas. And you see a couple of those things here. So I will kind of remind you that there's a lot of functionality in NetSuite that's native. This is a look at all the native functionality that is found in the NetSuite application. So if you're new to NetSuite, or maybe you've been on NetSuite for a while and you've forgotten some of the functionality from CRM to some of the reporting and even down to some of the optional modules, there's a lot of native functionality in NetSuite. So much of what we're going to focus on is what's new. So first, we're going to talk about the 2022.2 release. And I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because there's a lot here. Really what this is meant to do is give you a taste of that functionality. And if there's something there that you want to learn more about, you can certainly go read more online, or you can ask one of our team members, or feel free to email me. Of course, we'll have some time here for Q&A that you can ask more about that. But here we go. We're going to dive into 2022.2 and some of the major functionalities and feature releases. The first is the Cache 360 Suite app. So you will be able to download this Suite app, and really the intent here is to give you a little bit more of a real-time dashboard view of your cache. That's both the inflow and the outflow. And you can see a screenshot there. This is a bit of a preview of what that dashboard looks like. But the idea is give you one place to go to get a real-time forecast of how cache looks, including some of the features you see on the left, categorizations and current bank balances, and even some pie charts. So lots of capabilities in the new Cache 360 dashboard. There's also some enhancements to what you're hopefully familiar with in the visual workflow tool that's built into NetSuite called Suite Approvals. And one of the nice new features is the ability to not only build these approval and workflows out, but to have things pass through a draft status. So maybe you want to start a workflow, but you want to have it sit in a draft before, if somebody approves it, it actually then the transaction is completed. So that is a new feature you can read more about related to draft statuses of suite approvals. We also have a new Project 360 dashboard. So if you are a service-based organization and you are leveraging the project management functionality, or even the more enhanced project management functionality called Suite Projects, there are new dashboards. And the idea here is give your project manager a very, very real-time kind of one place to go to see everything that's going on in a project in a more graphical kind of visualization. So things like resources and allocations and resource planning, the actual billing and revenue associated to a project, any expenses, the pure financial view of a project. And then there are some enhancements related to profitability reporting and things on these dashboards. So certainly take a look at that if you're interested. And then the project portfolio, if you're looking at multiple projects at once, you can see reminders and other multiple project views in a single view. All right, we're going to talk about order management for a minute. So another area that NetSuite has enhanced in 2022.2 is PackStation. And you'll even see when I talk about Suite World announcements, there's something new called Ship Central, which kind of brings in PackStation and a number of other features. And these will be deployed in some of it coming now and some of it coming in 2023.1. But PackStation enhancements, there's a bit more functionality around picking and packing service items on the mobile device. A lot of our clients are using PackStation on a mobile, like an iPhone or Android, or maybe on an iPad. And these are great tools there's no additional fee for these. If you have a pick, pack, ship operation, you should take a look at PackStation. And some of these additional enhancements really make it easier for things like service items or lot and serial number items in that pick, pack, ship process within PackStation. There are also some overall user enhancements, user interface enhancements across NetSuite. There are three that we call out here. So you're probably familiar with Suite Answers. This is kind of the Google help within NetSuite. When you click on help in NetSuite, it'll take you to context sensitive help with whatever screen you're on. But if you go into Suite Answers, they've now enhanced the layout of Suite Answers, and you can kind of see a screenshot there on the left. It just makes it easier to find what you're searching for within the help area and Suite Answers area so that you can get right at what you're looking at or looking for. Another neat thing is once you find what you're looking for, there's a share button. So if you want to share that with a couple other people in the organization that might be also looking for the same type of help, that's very, very beneficial. The middle note there on global search, there's now when you global search for something in your NetSuite instance, like a customer name or a transaction, maybe you're putting in a transaction number or you're searching for an item, it'll show you the menu path now to get to that. You can click right on it in the results, but it also starts to help you learn what the menu path is to start to get to those, as you use NetSuite more and more. And that's something you can turn on or off in set preferences. And then finally, inline editing sublist tool. So a lot of capability here in list views and inline editing and a lot of enhancements there. So if that's something that's beneficial to you, inline editing, search that up and find that in the release notes because that's a great tool as well in the new release. All right, I'm going to shift over now to Suite World because there's a lot that was announced in Las Vegas. And it was a great event. I was there. We had a number of people that were there. And I think there were about 10,000 people this year. It was much bigger than kind of last year was coming off of COVID. It was about half the size. They kind of limited the size to try and prevent the spread of COVID. So I've been back now for a little while. I hadn't gotten COVID, so that's a good sign that hopefully it was a good event and a healthy event for everybody. But lots announced and lots to kind of share here. I'm going to touch kind of the tip of the iceberg of what we think are some of the bigger announcements at Suite World. And I will admit that some of these were announced and are going to be available sooner, and some of them were announced and are going to be available a little bit later. And coming right out of Suite World, sometimes we don't know exactly when that is. So in the days and weeks ahead, we'll probably learn more about that. But some of these I'm aware of are already available, and I'll try and touch on those as we walk through each of these. So the first one I want to touch on is CPQ. And you may be like, what in the world is CPQ? CPQ stands for Configure Price Quote. And it's a way of helping you and your sellers in your organization, or maybe even your clients, if they do this on the web, configure something so that they can get an accurate price and an accurate quote and an accurate purchase. Of course, you can see I've got a couple of samples here of popular, common configurations that we all go through. You go in a Starbucks and you're one of the $5 lattes and you have all these certain things that you want. That's kind of configuring the drink just the way you want it. If you're buying a vehicle or maybe a laptop, right? Those all come with configuration options. You know, this model can come with this touch bar or maybe this much memory or this kind of fusion drive or all those kind of things. So in a nutshell, that is what configure, price, and quote is all about. And just to give you one more sense of that, usually in CPQ, there is something like called a configurator and guided selling. So here my screen is showing a company that sells, high-end desks. And that can come in different finishes: walnut, cherry, left side, right side, under drawer options, all these different options. So the idea is now you can give your seller, your salesperson, or even your client on the web, there's pre-built integration now to NetSuite CPQ into e-commerce like Shopify and Magento, so that your customers can do this. And what's great is because it's native NetSuite, it knows what you have in inventory. And if there are alternates, if there's something out of stock, it can show the client, these are the color options we have, or, this is an alternate to what you're after. And at the end of this process, your sales rep or your client then can be confident that what they picked in all the options is available. They've got an accurate price on the screen, so your seller can send that quote off, or your buyer, your client on the web has got an accurate quote, and they can complete that purchase right online. So CPQ is a big deal for a lot of companies, and now that is a native capability in NetSuite. I'll just add here, NetSuite acquired a suite app, a third-party suite app, about a year ago called Verinia, and that is now the native NetSuite CPQ tool, and it's a great tool. So ask us more about that if that's something that you do in your organization. And there's even a couple of add-ons if you want to leverage this for accurate manufacturing bombs and routings. If at the end of that process you want your seller to then click on a button and have it generate a proposal that you can send to your client. And as I mentioned, e-commerce integration, so your client can do this right on the web. So lots of capability right there, native to NetSuite. Okay, I'm going to shift gears now, and we're going to talk about AP automation. So this has to do with accounts payable. This relates to your vendors, things you buy, invoices you get from all those vendors, and how can we make all that process a lot more automated and efficient. Most of you are probably using NetSuite vendor management and vendor bills. And when you get a vendor invoice or bill, what we call vendor bill in NetSuite, from a vendor, you may be hand keying that in. And with AP automation now, you can automate the generation of that vendor bill and automate the payment out to that vendor for that, and all the approvals and matching in between. That's called AP automation. There are a number of third parties that have been in the NetSuite ecosystem, that even many that we have partnerships with, that are still great options. But now NetSuite has a native capability. And I'm going to touch on just a high level, couple of slides here that give you an idea for what this is for. But at the fundamentals of this, bill capture, matching to a PO, paying that, the approval process, reconciling it, and then giving you good visibility and control over the broad AP process. Here's a quick look at some of the end-to-end capabilities. So being able to drag maybe that PDF or that email that you got from the vendor, drag and drop that into NetSuite. NetSuite will then OCR that, automatically create a vendor bill and look for the matching PO, route that around whoever the proper approvers are based on, maybe the dollar amount or who that vendor is. And then it can automate the payment through a partnership with HSBC, and it can initiate the payment and actually make the payment through either ACH check or virtual credit card. So lots of capability there. Here's a couple of screenshots. Here's the bill capture. So you can see here, we got a vendor bill in, we drag and drop that into NetSuite. It OCRs it. It creates the vendor bill. So you can see the scan on the left, the vendor bill on the right, and then it's going to automatically look to match that to the PO if we have a PO in the system. Any of our approvers, right from their mobile device in the NetSuite mobile app, whether they're using desktop or mobile, can approve those. Very easy to get those approved and through the process, whether it's a two-way match, three-way match. And then this is a view of the payment that will then go out to the vendor. And again, as I mentioned, ACH check or virtual credit card. Pretty neat on the virtual credit card side. This is also handy if you have employees that do expense reimbursements and maybe they go to an event like Sweet World and you want to pre-authorize them with a virtual credit card to use as they go out and make purchases at that event or wherever they're going. What's nice is when they make that charge, their NetSuite app will automatically pop up and say, is that related to this pre-approved event? It'll automatically enter that transaction in NetSuite, so they don't have to come back and enter in a lot of receipts into whatever you're using for expense reimbursement. So very, very handy feature there as well. And there's a rebate kind of cashback program as well through HPSC. All right, so lots on the AP automation front. It's a little too deep to unpack here in just a couple minutes. So let me jump over to Suite Analytics Workbook. This is something that all of you have. If you have a license to NetSuite, you have a license to Suite Analytics Workbook. And this is the built-in business intelligence tool right in NetSuite. So you've got your saved searches, you've got your hundreds and hundreds of reports that you use for everything from an income statement to sales orders and everything else. But your next option is Suite Analytics Workbook. And you may be familiar that all your data sets are pre-built and there's some pre-built workbooks, and you can go to town building workbooks, building pivots, charts, sharing those out to others in the organization, even dropping those right on your dashboard once you get the workbook built. But some enhancements here are very nice. So you can now do multi-level joins. There's a formula builder. So if you want to do some what ifs in your workbooks, you can also do caching. So sometimes when you build these workbooks, if there's a lot of data, maybe it takes, if it's like show me all of my AP or AR in real time, maybe it takes 10 or 15 seconds for that to load. You can actually cache that so that it shows you that data instantly and only refreshes when you force a refresh. And then you can see in the workbook side, there's some additional slicing and dicing tools, tables, pivots, charts, linking multiple data sets from within NetSuite, saving and sharing those out, and some additional capability to add those right on your dashboard in NetSuite. So that is Suite Analytics Workbook. Suite Analytics Warehouse is a tool that if you need a data lake or a warehouse, this is an added license option that you can choose if you need a warehouse or data lake and don't have one. And one of the great things about Suite Analytics Warehouse is the time to get it up and running is usually much faster than a third-party warehouse that then you've got to connect to NetSuite and connect to all your other sources. In this case, it already has all your NetSuite data. And then you can add connections into any other data source and bring all that in for visualization. New in what was announced at Sweet World was some embedded connectors already to common third-party apps and many pre-built visualizations, more and more pre-built visualizations. So ask us if you're interested in this Suite Analytics Warehouse tool, and we can certainly share more and give you a demo. All right, I mentioned some shipping information earlier. We mentioned PackStation, but now what NetSuite's done is they've added a lot of capability into what they're calling Ship Central. So already the ability to integrate into FedEx, UPS, USPS, automate going out and getting a real-time rate, bringing that back in, storing the tracking data, putting the shipping cost on that sales order, all that kind of stuff. But now we have weighing capability. So if you're in your warehouse, you've got a packing station, the ability to have a scale integrated right in to this tablet view. Maybe they've got an iPad or maybe a desktop, but even an iPad for simplified for your warehouse users. Scale, if you're shipping something based on a weight, you can do reuse of pallets, generate all kinds of labels. Most all of your labeling has already been a feature of NetSuite, but now you can more easily reprint those if something happens and you need to change the ship to address. And you can do also what's called GS1 linear barcodes and have multiple ship tos and just a lot more capability in what is called NetSuite Ship Central now. So if you are a distributor, you do a lot of pick, pack shipping, ask us about this capability. All right, we're getting down to the kind of the last few areas, rebate and trade promotion. There's always been a tool called rebate management, but they've enhanced it and kind of formalized it as a suite app. And it can handle everything from your rebate agreements or contracts that you have with vendors that might pay those rebates back to you. It also manages rebates that you might pay to your customers. Maybe you've got certain items that you offer rebates, or you're passing through a rebate that a vendor's offering to you. And it can help you manage those agreements and contracts in real time. Will help you manage those from sales orders. It can do settlements and claims and disbursements automatically. You collect maybe rebates, and once a month you want to create a claim to your vendor for all the items that you purchased from them and sold, or maybe still sitting in inventory, but they're paying you a rebate on your purchases from them. It'll automate those claims. And then on the client side, if you pay disbursements, it'll automate the disbursement of those payments to your clients, either through a vendor credit or if you need to cut a check. And then lots more formal financial dashboards and reports related to those rebates and trade promotions. All right, something that we saw that we really, really liked, if you have a lot of scheduling needs within your organization, maybe you are a restaurant, or maybe you're a retail organization and you've got a lot of maybe part-time people and lots of scheduling. So in addition to Suite People HR, which has a lot of HR capabilities, if you're not familiar with that, please ask us. Workforce scheduling is now a really, really cool feature of NetSuite. So on the front end, the NetSuite knows your past history of scheduling and time data, so it can generate a forecast of demand for time, and that can be turned into a schedule. You've got real-time viewing of your actual people and time clocks and overtime and all those things, so you can kind of shift and make decisions as you need to with that real-time data. But what's really neat is if you're in this camp where you need to do scheduling, when you create the schedule and send that out, your team now can get an email, and even in their mobile app see what their schedule is. And if maybe I'm one of those people and I'm like, oh, I forgot I'm going to a football game next Thursday night or whatever it may be, I can then say, hey, I'd like somebody to take this shift from me, or maybe I'd be open to a swap. That'll automatically go out to all my peers and they can see those in real time. Now we can kind of trade off and swap, and I don't have to go to my manager and say, hey, I can't work next Thursday, and then it's their monkey on their back. It's all done real time from the NetSuite mobile app, so that it really makes it much more efficient and automated. So lots of capability there. You see a couple screenshots, and here's a couple of ideas, kind of what I painted there in the app, where I can swap and make sure I've got my shift covered so I don't put that on my manager. So that is a lot. I know we've covered quite a bit. I'm going to just kind of wrap it up with a couple of summary slides, because I know some of you are new to the client organizations that we're supporting, and you may not know all that we do. So just from a high level view, we do support all different kinds of apps and needs across the organization. We have partnerships with lots and lots of tool sets and approved suite apps in NetSuite. So here's kind of a look at all that we do and many of the common partners that we do support and implement. So if you have any questions on any of those, please ask us. We also can help do what's called a path forward assessment. And let me go back to that slide. So if you ever have a question of, are we leveraging everything NetSuite can do? Ask us, because we can come in and do what's called a path forward. Take a look at, we have some diagnostic tools that will tell us how you're using NetSuite, and maybe even areas you've licensed but you're under leveraging. And we can kind of come back in and talk about this innovation stairway and maybe ways that you can leverage more and more of NetSuite to automate more and more of the work within your organization. So I'm going to actually wrap it up there. I'm going to jump to kind of our Q&A slide, and we will take questions and kind of open up the floor at this point. So thanks for the time, and the floor is now open up for questions.